There you go. Nice.
Jorge, you're on mute, my guy.
Great start.
Just talking. How are you on mute?
What?
You're on mute. What are you doing?
Am I muted?
Now you're good.
You're good now. You're good now. You're fine.
What? Okay, so apparently trying to tweet out while the intro's going is not a thing because my internet did not like that at all. All right, anyway. Welcome to Footium in the States, baby. We are here with the marketing lead at Footium, Roland, because season 4 is around the corner. Look, season 3 was incredibly fun. It went a lot better for some of us than others.
That's me.
It was me. I'm bad. But we're here. Oh,
nice.
See, we're just here for a good time. Anyway,
how bad did it go? Just quickly, what happened? Did you get relegated? Were you 8th, 9th? What happened?
I finished 6th. Okay. The beginning of the season, we went like 0-6, 0-7. It was harsh. It was a rough time figuring it all out. But we rallied. We came back. We made a push. We were getting there. We were trying to get to 5th. We were really trying to get up there. But hey, we turned it around, so it's looking good for the future. All right, season 4 is season 4. Bang, we're hitting it hard.
Nice,
we are hitting it hard. But that's why we brought you here.
I got started building for the future right from the start, and we were in the promotion race the entire time. I was basically with 2 really big clubs that had like 40 plus players and a ton of talent. But we were hanging. We were in 3rd the entire way. Ended up clinching 3rd on the last day against the team in 4th. We got the draw we needed.
Well done.
So we got those other 2 teams out. They're up to the bigger leagues, and now we get to dominate in next season.
It should be you next season.
It's all me. It's all me.
The pressure's now officially on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a promotion or bust this season for us. So
and a bit of prize money then because you came in 3rd. So is that getting put back into academies? What's the plan?
Yeah, definitely academy. I've got some guys listed to try and flip and try and keep the ball rolling. We got probably 4 or 5 flips in the first season. So
interesting.
Overall, actually cash flow positive despite putting a lot of resources into kind of building the team.
Interesting. Playing the transfer market. I like it.
Oh yeah. I was on the transfer market every single day. I was like, I know what these guys are supposed to be. And I know I can flip that guy for a profit. So
Jorge, I think I can see why you struggled and Chris came 3rd. There was a level of passion in the gameplay that was.
Jorge didn't even sign his academy guys to like the very end.
Okay, all right. Listen, all right, and I've said before, when you play around on the blockchain long enough, you end up learning that market tuition's a real thing. So I was like, look, I've done this a million times. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to figure it out before I dive in. Terrible idea. The one time that I tried to be good, it completely backfired. You try to be responsible and it all goes wrong.
It's a good approach, though. I think taking your first season slowly is always great, and especially with Web3 gaming, like generally, just building up your understanding. Maybe we'll see a better performance from you in season 4 compared to Chris. That's going to be the game changer, I would say.
I think for him, it's got to be promotion or bust too. I think he needs to be on the same expectation level as me. Now, he does have a little bit of a safety net this time, right? Because we expanded the payout places from 5 to 7. So this is
true.
That's huge. So talk to me a little bit about why that decision was made and how that's going to affect gameplay moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. So for context, Footium's going into its 4th season now. We've been in and had 3 seasons total. Real money prizes are available to people that placed previously from 5th to 1st in their leagues. You finish in the top 2, you get promoted, but you get prizes all the way down to 5th. What we kind of noticed with club owners was that often you get to the end of the season, and let's say you're sitting in sort of 7th or 8th.
Like me.
You're a few points you're a few points out. You've really
20
struggled.
points away from 5th.
yeah. You just kind of give up. It's like, I'm not going to win anything this season, so what's the point? I'm just going to stop playing. And that can really affect outcomes of games, right? So let's say you were really trying at the beginning of the season, and at the end of the season you're not really bothering. One of someone else's league rivals, they might get an easy game against you at the end of the season because you're just kind of like, what's the point? I'm not going to win anything at this point. And so this is kind of like the key thought. There's a few other things around it, and Marco, who deals with a lot of the kind of economics that play out in Footium, has sort of considered a lot of parts of it. But this is one of those main things, which is what we want people to do is feel like they should keep playing the whole way through the season. So there's an incentive to play even if you're pushing for 7th place over 8th. There's an incentive to play for 6th, which previously there wasn't. And it's a real struggle as well when you're getting promoted, because you get promoted up and you're playing against teams that are a good skill level better than you. You're not really likely to kind of immediately end up in the top places. But again, you kind of end up languishing in mid-table. There's no kind of way for you to then move forward into the next season. You really wanted to kind of play on that realism of football, right? So it's like if you think about the way that league structure around broadcasting rights, at the end of the season, people get a bit of cash. Everybody gets a bit of cash, and more cash if you're further up the league. So that was kind of the aim with the kind of expansion of places. And we appreciate that there's people in the community who said, oh, maybe not too sure about this, not sure if we want it in this league or in this league, but it's good to test, and that's the kind of main goal with these things, is to give it a go, see how it plays out. We're always open to change, but we feel like this is a good direction to go in for kind of increasing people's desire to play across the full season if they're kind of languishing mid-table.
No, I definitely, I definitely agree with that, because it does give that incentivization to keep going. Because like going with when I was in 6th, I finally got to 6th, and yeah, the person in 5th was 15, 16 points ahead of me with only a few games left in the season. And at that point, you really do make that decision. It's like, all right, well, I guess we'll just ship it and focus on next year. But now having that little bit more to go, hey, if I do push a little bit harder, and then now I can maybe get one more academy player in, or do something like that to advance yourself without having to double down and move crypto around again, like I did this morning. Okay. All right. I did it this morning. Moving stuff around, baby. All right, it's happening.
Nice. Well done. Exactly. You've hit it on the head, right? It's the academy players the next season. It helps with kind of doing those sort of things. And the change over the full places is not a huge amount, but for somebody sitting in 7th, there's a potential to get an academy signing out of that prize money. And so we want to make sure that if you're putting money in, you're spending on academy players, that you're getting some of that back to be able to kind of continue playing in the next season, and not just ending up in a situation where you're languishing mid-table, you're not getting anything out of the game, and maybe not playing the matches that you could be playing. So that's kind of one of the big changes for season 4.
When it comes to the changes that you guys made for the season, obviously the game is still very new. It's still in very early stages. Are these changes like things you already had in mind? Or were they kind of just as you go, as you get feedback, you kind of like start to decide, hey, we can do this or we can do that. So how much of it was already kind of premeditated changes, and how much was it like things that you learned as the season was going on?
Yeah, it works on both sides. I mean, to be honest, most is pre-planned. We put a roadmap out a couple of seasons back, kind of talking about what we'd be doing over the next few seasons. We try to keep those sort of roadmap focus, although future focus is slightly more structured, but in a way whereby we're not promising too much, because we do get a lot of seasonal feedback. We put a feedback form at the end of every season. Footium's been around for about 3 years now, and it's built around the community. So the community really feeds back into what gets built next. And I'm constantly saying to people in Discord, like, guys, like, keep the criticism coming almost. It's like, don't call us idiots, but please tell us more, because this stuff is really, really useful for us to kind of build on the game. And so those things do play in. The simulation is quite complex. The game engine is quite complex. It simulates 3,000 events every match. And so for those kind of changes, we have to really focus in and make sure that we're pre-planning for those things to go in, because we've got to do quality assurance, we've got to do testing, things like that. And that takes time to do. So for the most part, we tend to pre-plan, but that's not to say we don't look at that feedback and we don't take it into account. We knew that things like injuries, getting the own goals in would help solve for some of the issues. Goalkeeper goals has been a previous issue in season 3. There was real frustration in the Discord around that. There's frustration from me a lot of the time as well. So it's good to then see those solves coming in. And the own goals mechanism came in from Nick, who at the moment does a lot of our back end work, right? But he stepped up, got involved with the match engine, and built that system out to help improve on the kind of realism of the game as a whole. And that stemmed from feedback from the community and is not there on the original roadmap article. So it's a mix of the two things. Does that kind of answer the question?
Oh, yeah, that was perfect.
Nice, get in.
You're getting there. Yeah.
Smashing it.
Stacking those wins left and right.
I think one of the really interesting things from this season is the free agent, because I can see that kind of completely changing the transfer strategy behind everything, right? So
For sure.
talk to me about what the intent is behind that. Like what is the kind of goal to get people to do? And then talk to me about, what you guys have kind of thought through as some of the consequences, like some of the, I might try to unregister players from my team. Instead of having 45 players on my team, I might unregister them so they become more valuable to be sold. Like what are those kind of discussions? What have those been like?
Yeah, so the registration system is organically evolved in a quite exciting way. So one of the key things, issues that we'd identified was that people were shifting full teams mid-season. So you'd set up with a team. Let's say you set yourself up in Division 2. You've got a really good team. It's got a mixture of silvers and rares in it. You're competing for top spots. And again, you've ended up in a situation where maybe you're sitting in 6th and you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to get 5th place now. I'm not going to win any prizes here. Mid-season window comes. You shift all of your players down in Division 8 because you're like, right, well, I've got loads of silvers, I've got loads of rares. I'm going to win Division 8 easily. Like my team's been doing okay, but I'm basically guaranteeing I'm going to win every game from this point forward. And we also saw that people were kind of shifting players around to increase the amount of potential they could unlock. They'd be playing like 3 games a day. And we came in with souls, right? So we immediately said, like, guys, rules-wise, if we see that you're doing this, we're going to, basically have to be forced to punish you. We'll remove you from prizes, all that kind of stuff. Oh. But it's not really within the Web3 ethos, right? It's like, we don't want to be this, like, centralized body that's regulating how people behave. We want automated systems in place to solve for these kind of behaviors.
Right.
So the registration system it solves for a lot of that. It solves for people shifting and moving players around. It solves for the kind of people playing multiple games within a season. And one of the really cool things it does is previously when you bought a club as a first-time buyer, you don't get the players that have been previously playing within the club. So you're buying a team mid-season, the window's closed, so I can't sign any players, and all of the players have been removed from the club as well. So you're immediately playing with reserve players. It's just not fun for new people to come in.
Right.
And so what we wanted to do was create a registration system which allows you to come in at any point. It solves and restricts the current users from kind of getting away with what you'd argue are exploits. But it also, I'm being really diplomatic about this, but you're also solving for bringing new people in. So you can buy a club at any point in the season now. You will get the players that they've already got signed up for that season. If they don't have any players signed up, you can go onto the free agent market and build a full team, right? So it's great in that it solves for those kind of things. And what it does for, as you talked about earlier, the strategy is that you can look at your team of 45 and go, well, I've got 7 players here that realistically I'm probably not going to use. But somebody else in my same division or in a division lower than me or in a division higher than me might want them, and they might want them, post the window. So I'm going to take them out of my team, and I'm going to take on the punishment that is I can't train them. I can't unlock any more potential. They could potentially lose an entire year's worth of age, and I'll have done nothing with them. But there's an opportunity there that somebody might be interested in picking this player up mid-season when the window's closed and those kind of transfers are limited. So it adds a bit of extra value back to those players that otherwise are just sitting in clubs, not really doing too much. And as we talked about, I can't even remember if this was on screen or if we were talking pre-show, but the transfer market is, at least to me, one of the funnest parts of the game. I love negotiating with people on Discord, like having chats and being like, I'm not paying you 0.7. Are you joking? Like, you're ripping me off. I'll do 0.6. Maybe I'll think about it. Give me 24 hours, make them sweat. And then, you come back, offer them 0.5, whatever. we wanted to get more of that in. We want to keep people doing that. We want people to feel like they can enjoy that at any time. And the free agent system is a really exciting way for people to be able to do that. When you sign a free agent, they sign on for the full season as well. So there's that opportunity to set your team up and then roll on throughout the season. And you don't have to worry too much about kind of where they're heading until post game 22.
I like that a lot, especially when you were like, hey, you could buy a team mid-season now and then kind of almost get involved right away. To where before you could be excited, you found this new game, you're excited, you bought a team, you're excited, and then you get on, you realize, oh, well, I can't do anything until the season's over and start again. And at that point,
guess I'm getting relegated.
At that point, it's like you're lucky if they even come back and remember and want to get excited again, because that initial excitement's kind of out the door. And
exactly.
then at the same time, outside of the windows, like, you're never looking at the transfer market because you can't do anything anyway. So kind of kills the market a little bit, less liquidity. And now even if you do want to make moves, if you're proactive like you guys, just trade forever, then it's kind of hard to get anything done because no one's paying attention. So no, those are really key moves that I do think in the long run kind of push the game forward a little bit and just keeps you engaged in scouting and trying to get better. And now you could even get into places to pay out even easier now too. Now they're paying down to 7, so it's just all adding to the fun and excitement of the new season.
It's great to hear that from you guys as well, because I think with that sort of bringing new people in, it's been a real challenge over the last 3 seasons, especially coming from the sort of marketing side of things. Is that I'm kind of stuck in these windows of running things post day 22 to the opening of preseason, and that's when I kind of have time to push people in. But I'm also having to produce content work and get the announcements out and do all these extra bits. So what we've got now is we have this ability to bring people on at any time, and that's super exciting. And it advocates for us doing more of this kind of like jumping onto podcasts, going to events, doing more things where we get out there and speak to people, because if somebody's watching this right now and they think, hey, Footium sounds pretty cool, I might give this a look in, they're not just faced with a brick wall, which a lot of the time it has been across previous seasons. So it feels like it's solving a huge amount. And it's weird because it doesn't feel like it's the biggest update for club owners, but for us, it's massive. And going back to what you said about, looking at feedback and looking at pre-planned updates. A lot of the pre-planned updates are stuff where it massively benefits kind of function that internally is super beneficial, but realistically, like, do the club owners love it? Do they feel like it's making enough of a change? And we have to find that balance between making those big changes that the club owners love and the things that allow us to do our jobs in smoother ways. To
be fair, you guys doing your job in a smoother way makes the game smoother in general, which long-term benefits the club user, because, if we can't get new people in, there's no demand, the clubs don't get more valuable. So in the long term, it does. It's very hard for a person to see that in the moment.
Yes. Yeah.
But obviously in the long term, like as club values continue to go up because things are being done more efficiently, I think people will see the reward of that on the back end kind of. And I guess just kind of rolling into that, and I was talking about efficiency, and one of our first streams here, we're obviously trying to figure out how to play in season 3. And so I'm talking about, I'm gonna run all my guys down to 20% so that I can train them / play them and unlock potential. And you guys have kind of thrown in a bit of a fix for that and kind of made it a little bit harder to just kind of take advantage of. You can't fall below 20% in efficiency, or in stamina. So talk to me a little bit about that. I'm assuming that was kind of the main motivation for that. But talk to me about how that kind of changes the strategy too.
So we're talking about injuries here, or talking about
injuries.
Condition as a whole? Injuries. So injuries are coming in for season 4. We talked a bit about realism previously in regards to kind of prize places, and injuries is, again, like you see it in every game. It's like in FIFA, it's in Football Manager. If you're playing some kind of football game, playing some kind of sports game, there's injuries, and there's kind of a lot of time internally we're looking at these as solves for club owner behavior. So, for example, people would, as you said, they'd run their players down to 20% through training. They'd run their players down to 20% in games. You get teams that would set a lineup at the beginning. They kind of do like a set of forget, as you would with like fancy league. But their stamina would reduce right down. And then by the end of the season, they're playing on 20%. It's boring. It's not fun. And realistically, like if you're playing in Division A and you're trying every week to set your lineup, really well, you've only got commons or you've got a couple of bronzes in there, and you're playing against a guy that's put his silvers and his rares into Division 8, and he's not even bothering to touch them. And he's reduced their condition down to 20%. It's like, that's not fun. That's not enjoyable at all.
Yeah.
So injury solves for that in a certain way, because what it does is it forces people to make rotations, to think about how they're training their players up. It doesn't punish you in any realistic way, because I think if I remember the numbers correctly, it starts at 45%, right? And it exponentially increases up to 20%. So there's a small risk at 45 and then a pretty big risk once you hit 20%. If you're rotating correctly and you're playing as an active manager and playing the game in a way that's enjoyable and fun for you and for other people, then you're not going to really come across injuries too much at the moment. However, if you're kind of taking high risk, you're training these players until they're completely shot. You'd never do that in real life. You know, you're a coach, right? You don't. If some guy's been out and he's hungover the next day, he's getting punished for being hungover. He's not being made to do the training. I mean, from my very limited coaching experience, I would be doing that. That might not be true.
Very specific example.
Yeah, I'll stick by it. And so we kind of, it's solving for that realism thing. Injuries are super exciting, and it brings something in that a lot of other games have, and is a really exciting way of playing football games. But it solves for kind of club owner behaviors as well. One of the things that we don't talk too much about, and I personally think is super key from a marketing perspective, having worked in film, all these kind of things, is that it's about narrative, especially for like you guys, right? You've talked about season 3 in this way, where you have this story of how you performed, and we were pushing for, you know, promotions, and we got to 3rd, or we were languishing down in 7th, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring it back in the second half of the season. That narrative, that storytelling is so exciting. It's, for me, is one of the best bits. I do the kind of custom club badges for people when they purchase them. I get them briefed up for our design and get them made. I love that part of helping someone build a story out and an identity with their club. Injuries is such a great way of helping build depth to those narratives, because you're going to be like, oh, I was pushing for promotion and I just had to risk my rare player because I was up against my league rival. I knew they dropped below 45%, but, you know, I've got to commit to, you know, taking that risk. They got injured and it ruined the rest of the season. And it's like that bit of narrative, that bit of storytelling, that bit of emotion is so fantastic for, like, I'm coming back next season. Like, next season, I'm not going to make that same mistake. I will not put that rare player in. And we need more of that in Footium, right? We need more of those kind of narrative moments, because that's part of the fun of FM games. And so injuries is a really, really exciting way for us to kind of get that element in, at least from my perspective.
I love that you said that too, because we didn't, and like you kind of mentioned how we were kind of going through our teams and like acting like we really were and like pushing for all this. We didn't really plan that either. Like, it kind of just happened. We got these teams, and you go through the market and like there's all these different badges and names and all these, and you guys do kind of add like a little like small summary of the team and stuff. Like, there is so much potential to do that kind of stuff, and I think it's honestly incredible, and I'm sure it's just going to evolve more and more as time goes on. But I think that part that you're saying that you enjoy, I love it too, because you could really dive in. You could do whatever you want, and it makes you feel like, wow, this is really my team. It makes you care about it, and all of a sudden, you want to do everything in your power to make it successful, right? You don't want to be like me on Twitter going like, hey, I'm really bad at this game. All right? Like, you want to go and be like, yeah, we're winning ETH, and we're getting promoted. We're moving up the ranks, and we're just kind of sitting. So, because I've said it before, like the fact that I was struggling so hard, instead of just going, I don't like this game, I'm going to leave. It was like, oh no, I need to get in. I need to figure out how to. It was giving me that like boost to go, okay, I need to go sign players. I need to make moves. Like, I really need to figure this out, because this can't happen again. We're not doing this. Okay. We can't get relegated. Not in this house. No chance.
So kind of, I want to throw a question back to you guys, because it's something I always find really interesting. One of the things that Footium does that most other games don't worry too much about is that we force you down a route of having really specific like club names and club badges, and as you said, you're like, your lore, although it's very simple, is kind of already there. How did that feel coming in when you first started playing? Was that kind of a bit like, oh, I prefer to have made my own kind of club up? Or do you feel is it similar to maybe like fan culture, where you guys say, like, if you support Orlando City, the badge is already there and you become part of a group for that? Like, how did that make you feel? Would you like to see more kind of customization, or do you like that there's a kind of limitation to the way that those clubs are built?
I think personally, I kind of like the limitations to some degree. Like it's like an established brand that you have to come in and kind of tweak and change. And I mean, I work in a real football team, and that's kind of what we have, right? I get hired. I don't get to pick the club, crest and colors and all that. I mean, we're starting a women's team that I do get to pick all that stuff, but that's kind of beside the point. But I think coming in with that established history already, especially when you get, a few years down the road and you say, oh, this team, they were Division 1 and they've fallen all the way to Division 6. Like, to your point about storytelling, if I'm going to come in and change the name and change the colors and change all that, like, I'm changing the team. It's a new team. So I think that's a cool story, is, that's part of like the Welcome to Wrexham story, right? That's a lot of what Rob and Ryan focus on, is like, this team should be like Division 2, Division 3, like in the championship. And they've been down here, out of the football league completely. And that's part of what makes it such a great story. So I do definitely like that. And I think that kind of goes into how you buy your team, right? You kind of, like, different teams have different values because they have different histories and different stories. So I think long term, now right now, I don't think it really matters too much, but long term, I think it does kind of matter. And having, a team that was part of the original group of teams, or a team that's early on, as those teams get more and more rare and they start to fall off, I feel like that's going to be even more, valuable, because you're going to have, teams just get lost in wallets, and you have to replace them, with some. So those older teams are just going to get rarer and rarer and rarer and rarer as you go. So I think, having that and preserving that is important. And I don't know if you
it's
feel
a really
differently,
interesting,
Jorge,
really interesting thought. I've not kind of considered it from the kind of historical side, but that is, like you said, if you could find a kind of old Div 1 club that's languished in Division 6 and bring them back up, I'm already like, hey, I want to be the one doing that. I'm going to do that.
Let's welcome to Wrexham.
Yeah,
You can see it right now and look for it.
Let's go. That's a really interesting point. I think it does definitely resonate. But at the same time, and not to kind of sort of curtail it, but what I'm really keen to also do is provide more of that customization. So we talked a bit about, doing the custom badges and building people these, allowing them to have some kind of control. I think it's working out where those limitations lie, so that people feel like they're picking up something with a certain level of history, but they can put their own spin on it. Like you said, it's like, okay, so
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What about like a paid rebrand, right? Like, if a club rebrands, you change the logo, you change the web address, you change all this stuff. It costs money to do, right?
So this is what we do with custom badges at the moment. To some degree, you can rebrand your badge. We have a fantastic designer, Hamza. I'm going into a bit of a marketing spiel here, but bear with me.
Do your thing. So right here for it.
So we work with a guy called Hamza. He's incredible. He does like FA, not Football Association quality badges. He does them for actual teams. I think he's done one on like the international level. It was like a small island somewhere, but it was like their actual international football badge. He does some amazing work, and so we work with him to take people's briefs and produce these kind of rebrands for teams. We don't change names, but there's some incredible badges out there. He put a little montage up. I'll probably have to go and find it at some point and put it in a reply to this broadcast. But that's the kind of thing, exactly that. Like, and it's great that you've come to that conclusion on your own, because that's exactly what we're seeing. Is like, can we give people the tools to give a bit of a rebranding? Maybe at some point people can customize kits and things like that. That's something I'd love to see. No promises. This is not alpha. We don't. This is just me saying I want it.
Build me up to break you down. Every time.
But absolutely. Sorry, I've pulled us well off course. I'm sure you've got other bits you wanted to ask.
No, it's good. But I do want to say that I'm on the opposite side, where I'm more for customization. Like,
interesting.
It's because it's one of those things where it makes it more personal. Because now it's like I love it, the Brew Braver, it's cool. But like, if I could, hey, look, I'm an Orlando City sicko. Like, if I can make my club purple and yellow, I'm all in.
Nice.
And then again, with the kits, like being able to customize your own kit, whether it's like designing it like off site and then be able to import something. And then, I mean, we've had the conversation with like stadiums too. It'd be really cool to be able to customize your own stadium, put in your own kind of unique things that you enjoy. Just make it more personal, because I feel like if you can create that connection for yourself, it's just another like thing for you to care about and not want to see it fail. Because as you're building it yourself, you really feel like if it's a piece of you and you're like, okay, like this is really mine. Obviously, you can go to the OpenSea and then browse through and pick the ones that you want. There's a lot of really cool badges and team names out there, I gotta say. But it's one of those things where like adding that element of making it more personal just keeps you going even more, because you definitely don't want to see it get relegated. It's like, this is my baby. This is my lifeblood. Like, I made this. So it is a little bit of both. I do agree. So more customization is always fun.
Fair, very fair. We'll keep that in mind. Good feedback. Great feedback. Going to take that into the dev meetings.
So what do you... Hey, Mama did something. So I'm curious about this, just from a you perspective, right? Say you were able to own a Footium club. What's your kind of value out of it? Like, what do you think you'd do with it? Would you be like a transfer market person? Would you be like... So
all Footium team members own a Footium club. We're given one at the beginning. So we do actually get to do this, and it's great. It's one of the best things about our like internal chats. Is like
so
finding out
where you dropping down the relegation.
Yeah, if you jump into our Discord, half of general is just people rinsing me for losing. I got beaten like 12-0 the other day, and now I just get sent like memes with stuff where it's like King's Cash lost 12-0, like Roland sucks at management. I'm like, great, thanks guys.
Just help the wound.
Yeah. I wake up in the morning and I'm like expecting some emails to come through, and it's just DMs about how bad I am at Footium. So we do get teams. We're under very like strict rules about how we can use them, and any money that we win has to go back into the ecosystem. We can't like kind of extract anything. The kind of aim with that was we were looking at things like So Rare, and finding that teams that are not allowed to play the game alongside their the actual community members, they would struggle a bit to kind of develop well. And I think So Rare have adjusted their system now so that people are able to play again, and then you start to see improvements. So we kind of stuck with that. We've said to the community, look, if you don't want us playing it, totally fine with that, and we're happy to kind of stop. But we feel like if we play it alongside you, we kind of get more personal understanding of how the game works. I am exactly like you, Chris, where I am like transfer market mad. I pure focused on youth, and I think I'm currently not in profit, but I think I've maybe spent a very minimal amount for expanding the squad from 23 players up to 30 or so. And for me, I'm like so proud of that. I'm always telling my partner about it. I'm like, oh, you know, I've just signed this new player, like done this. So I've just wondering, she's like, oh yeah, cool, great. All right. Yeah. But that's for great. Me, it's yeah, exactly. A little pat on the head. It's like, oh, well done, Roland. I'll say, I'm like, I've got like, I will chat to you in a minute, but my game's on. Like, oh, we're eating dinner. I'm like, do you mind if I just leave the laptop open because I need to watch my game? But it's but yeah, so I'm very transfer market mad. So I was really excited to see the registration systems stuff come in. I really like chatting to people in the Discord and like trying to get the best deals and to kind of find gems that I can sell on to others. It helps me sign that next person. I really, really enjoyed those parts of the game. And then on the kind of like management side, I'm really keen to kind of make that more in depth, and that's kind of the next step for Footium, right? So we're working on, and the next big priorities are going to be game engine and match engine updates. Ooh. So it's that kind of in-game feel, right? So you're watching those games live, and it's nice to watch, and you can make some adjustments, but maybe you could make more adjustments, or maybe the flow could be slightly different, or we could expect different things to happen. I'm not sure yet. The devs are doing a kind of feedback round at the moment and looking at the kind of engine as a whole. So the decisions they make on changes are kind of still up in the air to some degree. But I love that part of it. If I can sneak out a win against somebody who's clearly way better than me, that is so satisfying. Yeah. And I want to see that happen more, because it's almost like the best part. The underdog stories are often the best parts about football, yeah. and I like that feeling. And it's hard to kind of balance the two, because you don't want people to think like, oh, I've got all rare players and somehow I lost against this guy with all bronzes. But I kind of like the idea of you being able to sneak out a win here and there. And in the first season, I managed to sneak out a promotion into Division 3. I was up against, I think it was Carlos Braithwaite, who's like this. He's one of our original like people that came to Footium, okay. But he's an international. He was a West Indies cricketer. Oh, and he was a big international, cool, really cool guy. He put a good amount of effort into his team, and he should have beaten me to promotion spot. I went ultra defensive the whole game. I was swapping out my centre backs. I would not let him score. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And managed to sneak out, preventing the points, and very, very satisfying. Very, very satisfying games. So that kind of stuff I really like to see. And again, I managed to basically nag George to give me a badge upgrade. So I was like, I was asking him every single week, like, please, just let me get a badge upgrade. Eventually he was like, all right, fine. Like, he just relented. It's like, this is too much. And managed to get the kind of customization things in, and that kind of side of things as well. I love the narrative of building up the team as a whole. So although people were rinsing me in chat about 12-0 losses, it's still fantastic because it means that people are buying into King's Caches like an identity. I'm becoming this like super villain that they like to see lose, and that is really satisfying. I'm happy to play into it.
You just got to embrace it. You just got to lean into it.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been really fun, and something I'd like to kind of see continue. To be honest, with us continuing to play, but we also have staging and UAT that we do practicing in. We do. So for kind of like QA testing. So we have the opportunity to play as is, but you often end up just playing against team members, and it's nice to have those narratives with, Crispy in the Discord, or Carlos jumps into the Discord and has a chat with you and gets annoyed that you managed to beat him 1-0 and things like that. So it's all good fun.
Yeah, it's all part of it. If you can't ever beat the big teams without spending more, then where's the fun in that? I do agree. There has to be a little bit of a bit of balance.
100%.
We'll get there. But I do know we got to get you out of here soon. Real quick, I do want to shout out anybody who did kind of chime in on the chat on X. By the time the next episode comes out, it will be on YouTube because they make you wait 72 hours for what? Just let me go live. But whatever. But yeah, anytime we do any of these, you could always hop in the chat, kind of chime in, be part of the conversation. We're all here for a good time. Roland, before we get you out of here, because I do know we got to get you out, is there anything you wanted to touch on? Anything you kind of wanted to talk, kind of put out into the metaverse over here on the blockchain?
Oh, good question. On the metaverse, that means it's permanent. Right. I mean, to be honest, I think it's just, if you're thinking about jumping in season 4, let's say you are a So Rare player. You guys have got a good So Rare community.
Thanks.
I think it's worth giving us a go in season 4. It's a really good time to jump in. There's been a lot of changes that have been made. We're updating things as we go. And I think one of the really key things to remember about Footium is that we are very community orientated. And I know that a lot of projects say that. They go, oh, we've got a big community and all this kind of stuff. We actually do have a big community, and we do listen to our community. We're building this game with you guys. So that's part of what I think we often don't talk about, but I think we should say more, is that if you jump in and start playing Footium, you put your feedback in and we take that into account. We are building the Football Manager game that you want to see. And so if you get involved now and there are things that you don't like, we're not going to turn around and be like, oh, why are you criticizing us? We've tried really hard. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to listen to you and go, hell yeah, good criticism. We'll take it into account. We're going to bring it into dev meetings. We might get it into the roadmap. We'll build it in the direction that you like. And I think for people that played So Rare and seen the success of So Rare, and often sometimes maybe seen So Rare struggling a bit, it sometimes has felt, especially for myself, when I'm playing those slightly larger games, I don't have that same relationship with the devs, or I don't have the same relationship with the direction of the game as a whole. And it feels like you're kind of along for the ride. With us, the whole team's in Discord. We're all there in the server. I'm always around to answer questions. Basically, my whole job is jumping into dev meetings and being annoying because I'm like, but such and such in the community said we should do this. And they're like, we're not doing that right now, Ronan. Like, leave it. Like, but hold on a second. We need injuries in. They need it. So we're always listening. We love that feedback. And, chatting to you guys a bit about the customization stuff is just all of these things are really great steps to improve the game and get us into a position where you guys can play something that you really enjoy on a daily basis. So, Season 4 is a great time to jump in. We've got injuries being added in, new prize places. The initial prize pools, I think, are just over $90,000. I think that was last published. So that's quite exciting. Don't quote me on that, though, because I'm not 100% sure if that is correct. I'm really worried now I've said the wrong number. But they're decent. The prize pools are started at a decent point. It's an exciting time to jump in. There'll be 7 academy players to sign, so you'll have the opportunity to build a team from scratch if you want to internally. You don't have to do too much trading if you're not that into kind of socializing side of things. 22 days of games. So we'll be kicking off. I've got to get these dates right. 21st, the
2
hub.
days.
I just want to say, for context, I'm not looking at anything here with the actual dates on. So if I remember this off by heart, this is impressive. It's the 21st for the hub going live. You get access to your academy, 7 players, and you'll be able to kind of set your teams. You'll be able to kind of set your free agents, things like that. 28th, the games kick off. So there's a bit of time now to build your team out if you want to. You can get in, start looking at clubs, jump into Discord, ask us questions, jump into the official links, read through the game guide, and we'll be kicking off on the 28th. So you'll get a good chance to get your team set up and start playing then. If you come to this later and you want to join mid-season, you can do that as well now. But I think Season 4 is a great time to jump in. Great time to jump in.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself, literally. Just would have never happened. Chris, Chris, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, obviously both of our first seasons kind of got completed here. And I think, yeah, kind of echoing Roland's point, it's a fun game to kind of jump into and start to learn and build out with the community. It does it reminds me a lot of, So Rare maybe 3 years ago when it was a much smaller community and, we kind of knew who everybody was at So Rare, and obviously it's a much bigger company now. But there is that chance for that feedback, and I think that's fun to be able to kind of build, a game that you want to play and have kind of that voice in the community, and then kind of go head to head with other real life people and see who understands more, like who's the better manager. So I can't wait till we get promoted into Div 4 and we can go head to head with King's Cash and make sure he gets relegated.
Never happening.
Or probably more accurately, I gotta wait till you get relegated down to Div 8.
Which probably will happen.
Yeah, race to the bottom. I'll race you to the bottom.
I'll still be there. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll see you in a couple of seasons.
Roland, the man of the people, the marketing lead at Footium. This has been incredible. This has been incredible chat. Footium is really embracing the web free vibe, which is something that makes me really happy and very enjoying that. Shout out to everybody who was in the chat. I know we didn't really touch it too much, but a little bit on a time crunch today because trust me, we'll sit here for 2 hours just hanging out with the chat all the time. We'll have to do that later. The happy hour. Come on, a little Footium happy hour. We'll make it happen. Roland, thank you so much for coming on. Footium, thanks for everything. Obviously setting this stuff up, making it happen. And we'll see you guys soon on the streets and the Discord. Somebody sell me players for cheap, please. I need help. God, get excited for Season 4, everybody. Have a good one. And we'll see you next time. I'm so bad.